Maya Rodriguez never expected that Tuesday night would be the last time she'd walk through those hospital doors as an employee. 24 years old, barely 2 years out of nursing school, working the late shift in the emergency department of Metropolitan General Hospital, right in the heart of downtown. The city never sleeps, and neither does trauma. That's what her supervisor always said. But that night, something felt different. The usual chaos of the ER had settled into an eerie quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that makes every nurse's instincts scream that something big is coming. Maya was restocking supplies in Trauma Bay 3 when the doors exploded open. Not the regular automatic doors, the service entrance, the one that's always locked. 4 men in tactical gear burst through, weapons drawn, shouting clearances and codes she'd never heard before. Behind them, a stretcher, and on that stretcher, a body that looked more like it had been through a war zone than a Tuesday night in the city. Blood everywhere. So much blood that Maya couldn't even see what the guy was wearing underneath. One of the tactical team members locked eyes with her. His face was pale, almost grey. "We need a surgeon. Now." He's got minutes, not hours. Maya's training kicked in before her brain could process the scene. She rushed to the stretcher, her hands already reaching for gloves. The patient was young, maybe 30, with a face that would have been handsome if it wasn't twisted in agony and drained of color, but it was his chest that made Maya's stomach drop. Gunshot wounds, multiple. She started counting and stopped at 15 visible entry points, 15 holes in a human body, each one pumping out life with every weak heartbeat. The tactical team member grabbed her shoulder. "He's federal protection, top level. We were ambushed 3 blocks from here. Everyone else is dead. He's all we've got." Maya's mind raced. She hit the emergency page for the on-call surgeon. Nothing. She paged again. Still nothing. She grabbed her phone and called directly. Voicemail. The surgeon's phone was off. Completely off. Maya looked at the monitor above the stretcher. Blood pressure dropping. Heart rate erratic. Oxygen saturation in freefall. This man had maybe 10 minutes before his body gave up completely. She looked at the tactical team, at their desperate faces, and made a decision that would destroy everything she'd built. "Get me a trauma kit, the full surgical setup, and I need 2 nurses I can trust." Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. She was a nurse, not a surgeon. She'd assisted in hundreds of procedures, studied surgical techniques obsessively, even practiced suturing on simulation models in her spare time. But this wasn't a simulation. This was a human being with a family, a life, a future that was draining onto her floor. One of the tactical officers stepped closer. "Are you qualified for this?" Maya met his eyes. "I'm what you've got. And if we wait for someone qualified, he dies. Your call." The officer nodded once, sharp and final. Within 90 seconds, Maya had her team. Jennifer, a veteran ER nurse with 20 years of experience. Marcus, a surgical tech who'd been about to go home but turned around when he heard the commotion. They didn't ask questions. They just moved. Maya's hands stopped shaking the moment she picked up the scalpel. Something shifted inside her. The fear evaporated. The doubt vanished. All that remained was focus and the absolute certainty that she was the only thing standing between this man and death. She worked methodically, extracting bullets from his chest cavity, one after another. Each one had created its own pattern of damage: torn tissue, severed vessels, punctured organs. Maya's fingers moved with a precision she didn't know she possessed. guided by instinct and thousands of hours of observation. Jennifer called out vitals in a steady stream, her voice the only sound besides the monitors and Maya's breathing. Marcus anticipated every instrument Maya needed before she asked for it. They were a machine, perfectly synchronized, fighting against time and biology itself. 30 minutes into the surgery, something miraculous happened. The patient's blood pressure stabilized. Not back to normal, but stable. His heart rhythm evened out. The bleeding slowed to a manageable rate. Maya extracted the last bullet, a fragment lodged dangerously close to his spine, and allowed herself one single moment to breathe. She'd done it. Against every regulation, every protocol, every rule in the book, she'd saved his life. Jennifer squeezed her shoulder, tears in her eyes. Marcus let out a breath he'd been holding for what felt like hours. The tactical team stood at attention, silent respect radiating from their postures. Maya stripped off her bloody gloves and stepped back from the table. The patient was stable enough to transfer to the ICU, where actual surgeons could take over and finish what she'd started. She watched as they wheeled him away, surrounded by armed guards and medical staff. Her scrubs were soaked through with blood. Her back ached from the tension of standing perfectly still for so long. But she felt something she'd never felt before. Pure, absolute certainty that she'd done exactly what she was meant to do. She had no idea that her badge had already been flagged in the system, that hospital administration had been watching the whole thing on security cameras, that her career was already over. Maya went to the locker room to change, her body finally starting to register the exhaustion and adrenaline crash. She sat on the bench, staring at her blood-stained scrubs in a plastic bag, and felt her phone buzz. A text from Jennifer. "They're calling you to admin first thing tomorrow morning. I'm so sorry." Maya's stomach turned to ice. She'd known there would be consequences, but she'd expected maybe a written warning, a mandatory training session, something manageable. The tone of Jennifer's message suggested something much worse. Maya didn't sleep that night. She lay in her apartment, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of that surgery, wondering if she'd made a catastrophic mistake or the only choice she could live with. The next morning, Maya walked into Metropolitan General with her head high and her heart pounding. Colleagues who usually greeted her warmly looked away. Some actually turned around and walked in the opposite direction. The whispers started before she even made it to the elevator. By the time she reached the administrative floor, Maya knew exactly what was coming. She'd been branded, marked as someone who'd crossed a line that nobody crosses. Dr. Harrison Chen, the chief of staff, and Patricia Moore from Human Resources were waiting in the conference room. Their faces were stone. Dr. Chen didn't waste time with pleasantries. "You performed an unauthorized surgical procedure without attending physician oversight, without proper credentialing, and without regard for hospital liability protocols. Do you understand the magnitude of what you've done?" Maya kept her voice level. "I understand that a man is alive because I acted when nobody else could." Patricia leaned forward. "That man's survival doesn't absolve you of multiple policy violations. You put this hospital at enormous legal risk. You exceeded your scope of practice. You made decisions that weren't yours to make." Maya felt something inside her snap. He was dying. The on-call surgeon wasn't answering. What was I supposed to do? Let him bleed out in our ER while we waited for someone with the right credentials to show up? Dr. Chen's expression didn't change. "You were supposed to follow protocol. Transfer him to a facility with available surgical staff. Document the situation. Protect the hospital's interests. Maya couldn't believe what she was hearing. Protect the hospital's interests? What about protecting human life? Isn't that what we're supposed to do? Patricia slid a folder across the table. This is your termination letter, effective immediately. Security will escort you to collect your personal belongings. You'll receive 1 week's severance pay. And Maya, if you're smart, you won't fight this. The hospital has grounds to report you to the state nursing board. We're choosing not to pursue that option, but only if you leave quietly. The room spun. Maya's hands gripped the edge of the table. You're firing me for saving someone's life. Dr. Chen finally showed emotion, a flash of something that might have been sympathy, quickly suppressed. We're terminating your employment for violation of hospital policy. What you did may have saved that man's life, but it also could have killed him and destroyed this institution. We can't allow that kind of liability. Maya stood up slowly. She didn't sign anything. She didn't say another word. She just walked out of that conference room with whatever dignity she had left. Security followed her to her locker, watched her pack her few personal items into a box, and escorted her through the ER, where she'd worked for 2 years. Every nurse, every doctor, every tech watched her walk that walk of shame. Some looked away. Others stared. Nobody said a word. Nobody defended her. Nobody stood with her. The silence was deafening. Maya pushed through the emergency exit doors and stepped into the bright morning sunlight, unemployed, humiliated, and completely alone. The days that followed were the darkest of Maya's life. She stayed in her apartment, avoiding calls, avoiding the world. Her phone blew up with messages from other nurses, mostly expressions of sympathy mixed with relief that it wasn't them. A few friends reached out, but their conversations were careful, guarded. Nobody wanted to be associated with the nurse who'd been fired for crossing the line. Maya's savings account showed exactly $2,300. Her rent was due in 12 days. She had no prospects, no references she could use, and a termination on her record that would make finding another nursing job nearly impossible. Maya started questioning everything. Had she been reckless? Had her hero complex overridden her judgment? Would that patient have survived if they'd just waited, followed protocol, done everything by the book? The doubt ate at her like acid. She replayed that night over and over, looking for the moment where she'd made the wrong choice. But every time she reached the same conclusion. If she'd waited, he would have died. It was that simple and that complicated. The hospital had chosen liability over life, paperwork over people, and they'd punished her for choosing differently. On the 4th day after her termination, Maya was sitting on her couch in sweatpants, eating cereal for dinner, when she heard it. A sound that didn't belong in her neighborhood. The deep, rhythmic thump of helicopter rotors, getting closer, getting louder. Maya walked to her window and looked out. Her apartment complex was in a modest part of the city. Working-class families, nothing fancy. The kind of place where helicopters definitely don't land. But there they were. 2 military helicopters, black and imposing, descending toward the parking lot. Maya's neighbors were pouring out of their apartments, phones raised, filming everything. The helicopters touched down, and Maya's heart stopped. Military personnel in dress uniforms emerged, moving with purpose directly toward her building, toward her apartment. Maya was still in her ratty sweatpants and an oversized t-shirt. No bra, hair in a messy bun. This couldn't be happening. But it was. Someone knocked on her door. 3 sharp official knocks. Maya opened it to find a Navy commander standing there, flanked by 2 officers. Behind them, her neighbors crowded the hallway, everyone recording on their phones. The commander's voice was clear and carried authority. "Maya Rodriguez? I'm Commander Stevens, United States Navy. May we come in?" Maya stepped aside, speechless. Her tiny apartment suddenly felt even smaller, with 3 military officers filling the space. Commander Stevens turned to face her, and his expression softened. "Ms. Rodriguez, 4 nights ago, you saved the life of Lieutenant Marcus Webb, a Navy SEAL conducting a classified operation in this city. He and his team were ambushed. Lieutenant Webb suffered 43 gunshot wounds. According to our medical assessment, he had less than 8 minutes to live when you began operating." Maya's legs went weak. She sat down hard on her couch. "Is he okay? Did he survive the rest of the surgeries?" Commander Stevens smiled. "He's recovering at a naval medical facility. Full recovery expected because of you." One of the other officers stepped forward, holding a wooden case. "Ms. Rodriguez, the United States Navy does not forget those who put themselves at risk for our personnel. You acted with extraordinary courage under impossible circumstances. You violated hospital policy to honor a higher calling, the preservation of human life." Commander Stevens opened the wooden case. Inside was a medal, gleaming gold and silver. "This is the Secretary of the Navy Medal for Civilian Valor. It's awarded for acts of extraordinary heroism not involving actual combat. Fewer than 60 have ever been given in the Navy's entire history. You are now one of those 60. Maya couldn't speak. Tears were streaming down her face. The commander pinned the medal to her t-shirt, right over her heart. Then he handed her an envelope. "This is from the Secretary of the Navy. It's a formal commendation. And this," he handed her a check, "is from a grateful nation, $125,000. Maya stared at the check. It was more money than she'd ever seen in her life. Commander Stevens wasn't finished. "Ms. Rodriguez, what happened to you at Metropolitan General is a disgrace. You are punished for having the courage that most people only pretend to possess. The Navy believes in action, in decisive leadership under pressure, in choosing right over easy. You embody those values. If you're interested, we'd like to discuss a position as a civilian trauma consultant for naval special warfare. But that's a conversation for later. Today, we're here to say thank you." The officers saluted her, actually saluted. Maya, in her sweatpants and messy hair, received a military salute in her living room. Commander Stevens and his team left the way they came, back to the helicopters that lifted off with a thunderous roar. Maya stood in her doorway, watching them disappear into the sky, her neighbors still filming, still watching. She looked down at the medal on her chest and the check in her hands and started laughing. Not from joy exactly, but from the sheer absurdity and perfection of the universe sometimes getting it right. Within hours, the videos went viral. Maya's neighbor had posted footage of the helicopter landing, the military officers entering her building, everything. The internet exploded. News outlets picked up the story. By that evening, Maya was trending on every social platform. The headlines wrote themselves. "Fired nurse honored by Navy for saving SEAL's life. Hospital fires hero, military says thank you. The nurse they tried to silence." Metropolitan General's phone lines were overwhelmed. Their social media accounts were flooded with outrage. People demanded answers. How could they fire someone for saving a life? Maya's phone didn't stop ringing. Interview requests from every major news network. Messages from lawyers offering to represent her in a wrongful termination suit. Job offers from hospitals across the country. Even a few messages from Hollywood producers wanting to option her story. It was overwhelming and surreal. Maya ignored most of it. She didn't want fame or revenge. She just wanted to do her job, to help people, to use her skills where they mattered. But the world had decided she was a hero, and there was no putting that genie back in the bottle. 3 weeks after the Navy's visit, Maya received another call. This one was from Dr. Sarah Martinez, Chief Medical Officer of Northside Regional Hospital across the city. Ms. Rodriguez, I've followed your story closely. What Metropolitan General did was unconscionable. I want to offer you a position here. Not just any position. I want you to head up our new Emergency Ethics Response Team. You'd have the authority to make critical decisions in situations where protocol fails and human judgment becomes paramount. You'd train other staff, develop new protocols that balance policy with reality, and yes, you'd still work clinical shifts because I know that's what you love. Maya couldn't believe it. You want to hire me after everything that happened? Dr. Martinez laughed. I want to hire you because of everything that happened. You proved you have the courage to do what's right when it's hard. That's leadership. That's what healthcare needs more of. Your salary would be double what you were making at Metropolitan, full benefits and complete support from administration. I won't lie to you, Maya. There will be people who question this decision. But I'm not hiring you despite your termination. I'm hiring you because of what you did that got you terminated. Maya accepted the job. Her first day at Northside Regional was nothing like her last day at Metropolitan General. Staff members greeted her warmly. Several nurses told her she'd inspired them to trust their instincts more. A young resident confessed that Maya's story had made her choose emergency medicine instead of a safer specialty. Maya felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope, purpose, the sense that maybe her suffering had meant something, had created something better. Months passed. Maya settled into her new role, loving the challenge of balancing policy with humanity, teaching others that rules exist to serve people, not the other way around. She'd started speaking at nursing conferences, her message simple but powerful. Trust your training. Trust your instincts. And when those two things align in a moment of crisis, don't wait for permission to do what's right. The response was overwhelming. Nurses across the country reached out to share their own stories of times they'd been punished for caring too much, for acting when protocol said to wait, for choosing humanity over bureaucracy. One afternoon, Maya received an unexpected message. It was from Commander Stevens. Lieutenant Webb wanted to meet her. No press, no cameras, no spectacle. Just two people whose lives had intersected in the most dramatic way possible. Maya agreed immediately. They met at a quiet coffee shop near the naval base, far from the city center. Maya arrived first, nervous in a way she hadn't been since that night in the trauma bay. Then he walked in. Marcus Webb looked completely different from the dying man on her stretcher. Healthy, strong, moving with the fluid grace of someone in peak physical condition. But his eyes, Maya recognized those eyes. They held the same intensity, the same determination. He sat down across from her, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Marcus extended his hand. I owe you my life. Those are words I don't say lightly or often. Maya shook his hand. You don't owe me anything. I was just doing my job. Marcus smiled. That's exactly what the Navy told me you'd say. But it's not true. You went way beyond your job. You risked everything you'd worked for. And I'm here, alive because you made that choice. They talked for 2 hours. Marcus told her about the ambush, the mission that had gone sideways the moment he'd realized he was dying. Maya told him about the aftermath, the termination, the darkness that had followed. Marcus listened intently, his expression growing harder with each detail. They should have given you a promotion, not a pink slip. What you did that night, that's what we do in the teams. You see a problem, you solve it. You don't wait for orders, you don't second guess. You act. Maya found herself relaxing, laughing even. This man understood. He'd lived in a world where hesitation equals death, where decisive action is the only option. As they were leaving, Marcus stopped her. Maya, there's something you should know. The Navy doesn't just throw around medals and checks. We investigated everything that happened that night. Every decision you made was correct. Textbook even. Some of our own surgeons reviewed your work. They said you operated with the skill of someone with years more experience. You saved my life, not just because you were brave, but because you're exceptionally good at what you do. Don't let anyone, especially Metropolitan General, make you doubt that. Maya drove home that evening feeling lighter than she had in months. The validation from Marcus meant more than any medal or news story. She'd saved a life, and that life was thriving. Everything else was just noise. But the universe, apparently, wasn't done with her yet. 2 days later, Maya was called into Dr. Martinez's office. The chief medical officer was grinning. Maya, I just got off the phone with the American Nursing Association. They want to honor you with the Nightingale Award for Excellence in Nursing. It's the highest honor in the profession. The ceremony's in 2 months in Washington, D.C. You'll be recognized alongside nursing leaders from around the world. The ceremony was surreal. Maya stood on a stage in front of thousands of nurses, receiving an award named after the founder of modern nursing. Her acceptance speech was simple. Florence Nightingale once said that nursing is an art, and if it is to be made an art, it requires an exclusive devotion and hard preparation. But I believe it requires something else too. Courage. The courage to act when action is required, even if it means standing alone, even if it means losing everything. Because at the end of the day, we're not here to protect policies or institutions. We're here to protect lives. And sometimes that means breaking the rules. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. Maya saw nurses in the audience crying, nodding, understanding exactly what she meant. After the ceremony, dozens of people approached her. A nursing student who'd almost quit after a professor told her she cared too much. An ICU nurse who'd been reprimanded for advocating too aggressively for a patient. A school nurse who'd been fired for helping a student without parental permission. All of them thanked Maya for giving them permission to trust themselves again, to remember why they'd chosen this profession in the first place. Life moved forward. Maya continued thriving at Northside Regional. The emergency ethics response team became a model that other hospitals started adopting. She was invited to consult on policy development at the state level. Medical schools asked her to speak to future doctors about the human side of medicine. But through all of it, Maya remained grounded. She still worked shifts in the ER, still got her hands dirty, still connected with patients in their worst moments, because that's who she was. Not a hero, not a celebrity, just a nurse who'd made one decision in one impossible moment and refused to apologize for it. 1 year to the day after that night, Maya received a package. No return address. Inside was a photo, It showed Marcus Webb, fully recovered, standing with his SEAL team. On the back, a handwritten note. "Because of you, I was here for my daughter's first birthday last week. Because of you, I'll walk her down the aisle someday. Because of you, I get to live the rest of my life. You didn't just save me that night, you saved every moment I'll ever have from now on. Thank you doesn't cover it, but thank you. Semper Fi, Marcus." Maya put the photo on her desk at work. Whenever she had a hard day, whenever she questioned a decision, whenever the bureaucracy and politics of healthcare threatened to wear her down, she looked at that picture, at Marcus alive and whole, at the life continuing because she'd chosen action over fear. And she remembered the most important lesson she'd learned through all of this. The rules are there to guide us, but they can never replace human judgment in a moment of crisis. Compassion has to come first, always. The phone rang. Another trauma coming in. Maya grabbed her badge and headed to the ER, ready for whatever came through those doors, because that's what she did. That's who she was. And nothing, not termination, not humiliation, not even the threat of losing everything, could ever change that. She was a nurse. And sometimes, being a nurse means being brave enough to break the rules to save a life. If Maya's story moved you, if it made you think about the people who fight for us when nobody's watching, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button right now, because next week I'm bringing you the story of the firefighter who was arrested for rescuing someone the department said wasn't worth saving. Trust me, you won't believe what happens next. And drop a comment telling me, would you have done what Maya did? Would you risk everything to save a stranger? I want to know. Now hit that like button and let's keep spreading stories about real courage. See you in the next one.